Good evening and welcome to Mining the Riches of the Parsha. Tonight is Thursday night, April 27, 2023. It is so wonderful for me to be able to see all of you here, for us to be able to learn together. Thank you very much for setting aside this time and allowing us this opportunity, this privilege to be able to study with you. I look forward to this all week. Just as a reminder, this is the last class for which we're meeting at 8 p.m. Next week, a week from tonight, which is May 4th, we will start at 7 p.m. and then we're going to resume 7 p.m. going straight. Also, I am very proud and happy to announce that next Thursday night, May 4th, we will be meeting in person here at ADATH for the first time in over 3 years, but we will also be on Zoom. So you have your choice. If you want to come in person, you can come in person. Hopefully there will be cholent. And if you want to join on Zoom, you're welcome to do so. Same login, same setup. I'm sorry I'm not able to bring the cholent to you, but if you come here to ADATH, it will be available, hopefully. Tonight, I want to discuss the intersection of several psukim, several verses in this week's Torah portion, the double Parsha of Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. Famous pasuk, Lo samod al dam re'echa. Do not stand idly by when the blood of your brother is being spilled. This teaches us that if I see that someone else is in danger, and I have the ability to help them, I have an obligation to do so. It's not just commendable, a nice thing, it's an obligation. And our rabbis in the Talmud extend this not just to if someone's physical life is in danger, but to other needs as well. Especially given that the Talmud teaches that one person who embarrasses another person in public is as if they have shed their blood. Certainly, in a situation where someone is embarrassing another person, humiliating another person, saying something that is offensive to another person, I have the absolute obligation, if I am able to step in and to come to their aid and to prevent that terrible thing from happening. Another pasuk. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your fellow as you love yourself. Famously, Rabbi Akiva says, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. This is the whole story. This is the fundamental organizing principle of the entire Torah, to love every single fellow as yourself. Now, this has a very practical application. How do we fulfill this? Well, the great sage Hillel gave us a formula that's very, very easy to apply. Da'alach sani l'chavercha lo savit. If you would not want it done to you, make sure you don't do it to someone else. Very simple. If you would not want to be called that name, if you would not want to be treated that way, don't do it to someone else. Zuhi kol ha-Torah kula. This is the whole Torah. This is it. V'idach pirushahu. Everything else is commentary. This is it. Very simple. I wouldn't want someone to say that to me. I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. Then I may not do that to another. Now, this verse is related to a more comprehensive pasuk at the very beginning of the Torah, in Bereshis, where the Torah says, Vayomer Elokim, and God said, Nase Adam b'tzalmenu kidmusenu, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. Vayivro Elokim es Adam b'tzalmo, And God created man in his image. B'tselem Elokim bara'oso. In the image of God he created them. He created him. Zachar unekeva bara'osam. Male and female, he created them. What does that mean? What does it mean that every single human being is created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God? It can't mean that we all look like God, because God has no physical appearance. It certainly doesn't mean we all act like God. Clearly, there are many evil people in the world. What does it mean that every single human being, without exception, is tselem Elokim? The Malbim says it means v'hu kli yakar. Every person, every man, every woman, every child, without exception, is a precious vessel of God, something dear and cherished by its creator. The Netziv writes, V'zeu tselem Elokim hamasavavo umegin alav minezek. The word tselem, according to the Netziv, is related to the word tseil, which means shadow. Tselem Elokim is that every human being is surrounded by God's protective shadow. God's presence surrounds and envelops every single human being without exception. Another pasuk. This is a little bit later. We're going to read this in the Torah in a couple of weeks. V'losonu ish es amiso. Do not wrong another. V'yoresa me'elokecha. You shall fear God. Ki ani Hashem Elokecha, because I am the Lord your God. What type of wronging are we referring to here? Our rabbis explain. There are two types. There's wrongdoing of a monetary manner, when I overcharge something more than I should be charging someone in a purchase. But our rabbis say, Kishem she'ona b'mekach memchar, just like it is possible to oppress, to wrong another person by overcharging them. Kach ona b'dvarim. So too there is wrongdoing with words. If I say a word that upsets you, if I call you a name, or use a word to describe you or identify you, and that word causes you pain, discomfort, I have violated this prohibition in the Torah. And it doesn't matter what my intent is. It doesn't matter if I think that that word is a neutral word. I don't see why you should be so upset that I use that word. If you don't like it and I use it, I have violated this commandment in the Torah. Finally, one last pasuk for tonight. This is at the end of Acharei Mot. This week's Torah portion is double portion, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim, the end of Acharei Mot. Ves zachar lo sishkav mishkave isha. A man shall not engage in a sexual relationship with another man. To'eva he. It is a to'eva. So, how do we calibrate the balance of all of these verses so that our general approach will be in accordance with God's will? Let's start with the last pasuk. V'zachar lo sishkav mishkave isha. Misunderstanding this verse has led, and among many people continues to lead, to untold pain, anguish, and suffering, made so much worse when this pasuk is not integrated and balanced with the other verses that I mentioned. So let's start here. What does this pasuk teach us? Es zachar lo tishkav mishkavei isha, physical intercourse between two men is prohibited according to the Torah. Let's understand what that means. Two men living together is fine. Two men holding hands is fine. A man who is physically attracted to other men and not to women is fine. Only mishkavei isha, only a specific act of physical intimacy between two men is prohibited by this verse. This, for traditional Jews, is incontrovertible. It is not subject to reinterpretation, and it is not subject to modification based on what is popular at any one time in history. But let's turn to the nature of this prohibition. Because the Torah says, to'eva hi. What does that mean, to'eva? And here we would do well to recall the famous words of H.L. Mencken, who said, "For every complex question there is a simple answer, and it is wrong." The common translation of that word, to'eva, is abomination, something that is abhorrent. And that implies that not only is this behavior wrong, but it is deviant. It is unnatural. And this translation has unleashed centuries of widespread abuse, bullying, violence, and hysterical reactions to a person who is gay. But this understanding of to'eva is untenable for two reasons. And it is untenable no matter how widely and frequently it is repeated, and no matter the apparent authority of the one who says this. It is wrong for two reasons. Number one, the word to'eva is used to describe a number of different prohibitions in the Torah. For example, the Torah says eating non-kosher food is to'eva. A person who engages in less than honest business practices is to'eva. For some reason, there are many people who are willing to tolerate Jews who are doing those things without calling them abhorrent or deviant. But for some reason, this one prohibition, some people react so much more negatively, so much more angrily to a person who is gay. And when a person does that, when a person responds out of whack with what the Torah is telling us, we need to investigate where that unduly harsh feeling is coming from, because it is not coming from the Torah. Nobody calls names. I've never heard someone call names to a person who eats non-kosher food. I've never heard someone describe as deviant or unnatural or push away someone that engages in dishonest business practices. Sadly, to the contrary, all too often those people are honored in our community, to our shame. But number two, we Orthodox Jews are the first to say we do not understand the Torah literally. We understand it in light of how our sages explain it. That is axiomatic for an Orthodox Jew. And unlike those other sins where the word to'eva is used, here, our rabbis in the Talmud have a specific explanation of what this term means. And it's interesting to note the context in which this definition arises. The Talmud tells us of the wedding of the daughter of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Judah the Prince. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi lived in the northern part of Israel in the 2nd century of the Common Era. He edited, put together, finished the Mishnah, one of the greatest Torah leaders, Torah scholars of all time, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, and his daughter was getting married. So at the wedding, one of the other scholars, Bar Kapara, approached him and asked him a question. He said to him, they were just talking. He said to him, what is the meaning of this word in the pasuk to'eva? What does it mean in this pasuk, in this verse? And Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi said, I don't know. I don't know. You tell me. What does it mean? And Bar Kapara said, to'eva in this verse is a portmanteau. It's a word that is comprised of 3 separate words. To'eh ata ba. You are making a mistake. That's what to'eva means. To'eva means to'eh ata ba. You are making a mistake. In other words, what Bar Kapara is saying, excuse me, we're here at a wedding, a wedding of a Jewish man and a woman to each other, and Bar Kapara observes that this is the ideal way to create a Jewish home. The Torah prohibits homosexual intercourse, as it is not, from the Torah's perspective, the right way to build a home. But please notice that in this translation, in this explanation, there is nothing abhorrent. There is nothing unnatural. There is nothing deviant. It's just not the right path. Just like speaking Lashon Hara, speaking negatively about other people, is not the right path. Violating Shabbos is not the right path. Etc., etc., with every mitzvah in the Torah. And look at what we lose when we ignore the Talmud's clear, dispassionate understanding of this word to'eva. All too often, as a result, we exclude a person who is gay. We may insult them, God forbid, call them names, mistreat them, cause them shame and embarrassment. We don't protect them when others cause them harm. We don't look at them as Tselem Elokim, dear and cherished by God, whose presence envelops them. And all too often, as a family or as a community, we push them away. All too often, parents push away their children. Rabbis push away those in their community. In other words, we violate every single one of the verses I quoted before, each one of which is a terrible sin, by distorting this one verse and allowing us to ignore all the others. And most of all, worst of all, the worst of it is, we do it in the name of religion. This is a terrible, terrible wrong. And especially we, Orthodox Jews, must never do this. And we must apologize if we have done it in the past. One of the specific disastrous consequences of this terribly mistaken attitude is the effort of some in the Orthodox world and beyond to fix it, to change a person's sexual orientation from, in quotation marks, abnormal to normal, quotation marks. One of these approaches is often referred to as conversion therapy. There are other names for it. It doesn't work. It causes horrific pain and shame, and it doesn't work. Among many, many others, the RCA, the Rabbinical Council of America, of which I am an active member, in 2012 affirmed that this approach is harmful, contrary to Orthodox law and values, and should not be pursued. In the United States, in Israel, in Canada, in many, many other places, it is illegal to offer this kind of therapy. In 2020, I was invited to testify before the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights at the House of Commons in Ottawa, to speak in support of Bill C-6 that strengthened the ban on conversion therapy and thereafter became law here in Canada. And here's part of what I said. My involvement in this specific area began in 2012 when I read that the renowned psychiatrist Dr. Robert Spitzer, who years earlier had written a seminal paper that was used to support conversion therapy, recanted that research. And he wrote, "I owe the gay community an apology." After learning about the destructive effects of conversion therapy and hearing firsthand the harm of its effects, I would rephrase the now widespread sentiment against conversion therapy by paraphrasing a verse from the Bible that occurs when the brothers speak to Yosef. We are ashamed of what we did to our brothers and sisters. We saw them suffering when they cried out to us, but we did not listen to them. Today, I said in my testimony, I ask that you do listen to them and take action to prevent this particular cry from ever being repeated in Canada. For me, this is a straightforward issue of human rights. I find the earliest expression of human rights near the beginning of the Torah, that every human being is created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God, cherished by God, deserving of respect and dignity. Our rabbis in the Talmud expand this into the wide-reaching rubric of kavod habrios, the innate right of human dignity, that we are prohibited to embarrass, humiliate, or debase anyone. It is central to my mission as a rabbi and my identity as a Jew to make every human being feel welcome and respected. Conversion therapy does just the opposite. It is inherently belittling and dismissive. It demands that people live inauthentically, untrue to themselves, and requires a harsh cure where there is no disease. Its methods are often humiliating and traumatizing. There is no place for it in Canadian society. And I ended my testimony with this. I remember hearing a radio interview. Dr. Spitzer was asked how it felt after writing his retraction at the age of 80, that his entire life's work and reputation would be tainted by this one research paper. And I remember he said, "I feel very bad, of course, for the hurt I have caused. But at the same time, when I realized I was wrong, I retracted it and said I was wrong and apologized to those I had hurt." Not many people do that. And that is something to be proud of. Throughout my career, I have been an active member of my rabbinic organization, the RCA, the Rabbinical Council of America. It's the largest organization of Orthodox rabbis in the world. For several years, I served as the chairman of the annual convention. And our committee had an awesome responsibility to create the program, to decide the most important issues facing North American rabbis that year, and to structure how to help educate rabbis to be able to do our work better. In 2016, the theme of our convention, which I chaired, was caring for LGBT congregants and their families. And we provided sessions with professionals, rabbis, scholars, and Orthodox individuals who are LGBT, who want to be part of the Orthodox community but are all too often pushed away. Let me share with you some of what we learned. We heard things that some rabbis say that are deeply hurtful, needlessly hurtful, and we learned how to speak more sensitively. We learned that some of us need to work to repair the pain we have caused our LGBT brothers and sisters for using religion to reject, belittle, and even make fun of those with an orientation different than our own, and for encouraging and supporting their families to do the same. We learned that gay and lesbian teens from highly rejecting homes are 9 to 10 times more likely to attempt suicide. We heard from one woman who lives as an Orthodox Jew, and she is a lesbian. She told us that when she was ill, she suffered terribly when her shul refused to offer the Mishaberach prayer for her recovery and refused to visit her in the hospital. She said, Ahavas Yisrael, loving our fellow Jew, is an empty platitude if we limit it only to those Jews who are just like us. And most importantly, We brought individuals to speak with us who have felt that they were pushed away by us. And so we listened, even when it was hard and uncomfortable to hear what they were saying to us. We listened. We admitted that we can change, while affirming the truth of our Torah, which is not up for discussion. But we can model the benefits of this direct human interaction, and we can make ourselves thereby better rabbis. We heard from a respected therapist who is very active in this area, working with Jews who are gay and lesbian, who are Orthodox also. At one time, this woman was my student, and I am so proud of her. She told us that reinterpreting Jewish law, saying that this is not a violation of Jewish law, is not what these individuals need. It's not what they are looking for. They don't question the Torah. What they need, what will reduce the risk, what will improve their self-esteem and will improve their overall mental health, is not rejecting them, but embracing them. And please understand, embracing does not mean approval, it does not mean celebration, but it means embracing with love, including, holding close. We also learned that a person who is hiding their identity can be doing something that is very harmful to themselves. Such a person increases their mental health problems, increases their unsafe practices, increases their self-loathing, increases their alienation. A person, if they decide to announce their status, and of course that is a personal decision each one should make and no one should make for another, but when a person does decide to announce their status, they should be supported, embraced, not pushed away. A person should be encouraged to live a life that is truthful, that is genuine. To every Jewish person who is LGBTQ+, I say, I am ashamed of the terrible things done and said to you in God's name. I apologize to you for not doing more and for not doing it sooner. I say to you that Jews are Jews. All Jews are Jews, no exceptions. I say to you that all Jews are loved by God, and I love you. All Jews, without exception, are welcome in the Jewish community, and all Jews, without exception, are welcome here at ADATH to attend, to participate, and to lead. I say to you, I am your rabbi. This is our God. We are part of each other's family. We are part of the same minyan. And we are part of each other's blessings. You belong here. And I will do everything in my power to make it comfortable for you to be here and for you to thrive here. My friends, I want to wish you a great evening and a beautiful Shabbos. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person.